Good morning, guys. We are here in Dublin right now. We are just kind of transiting through. But today we thought we'd take you along because we're doing something we don't normally do. We are taking a business class flight through Toronto on Air Canada. We're hoping that it's a good experience. We're a little bit nervous because it looks like this flight has basically never taken off or landed on time, and we do have another connecting flight, so hopefully things are running smoothly. We do have a 3-hour layover in Toronto as well, so we'll hopefully be able to show you the Maple Leaf Lounge there. Yes, so we're going to go get some breakfast and then take the shuttle over to the airport, and then we'll show you guys around. The shuttle to the airport dropped us off at the front door of Terminal 2 for our flight on Air Canada from Dublin to Toronto. The airport is not overly huge, and it's pretty easy to get around. It didn't take very long to check in, and before we knew it, we were making our way through security. We were also able to take the fast lane with security because we had a business class ticket on Air Canada, which was nice to have. With business class on Air Canada, you get access to the T2 lounge. Now, if you've been in Dublin Airport before and have been in the T1 lounge, you might be used to that level of service. However, the T2 lounge is much larger, and to be honest, the food selection is a lot better too. We were there in the morning, so we had an actual bartender and barista that was able to make specialty coffees. The lounge had pretty good Wi-Fi, and we got some work done while we were here. If you don't have a business class ticket, you can gain access to this lounge with a priority pass, or you can pay €30 for access if you book online, or $35 at the door. After spending a few minutes at the lounge, we made our way to the gate. That's when we got our first glimpse of the beautiful Boeing 787-9 that would take us over the Atlantic. It really is a spectacular plane, and it's a very uniquely colored paint job with the pale blue livery. Unfortunately, we weren't at the gate long before we found out that the flight was going to be delayed by about 30 minutes because of late arrival of the aircraft. Now, this is one area where the lounge really let us down. We had no indication on any of the screens that this delay was happening, but when we got to the gate, that's when we saw it. A 30-minute delay wasn't too bad though, so we just sat and waited at the gate. Eventually boarding time was called, and we made our way to the very large, comfortable lie-flat seats in the business class of this plane. These seats were really clean, and the cabin of this plane still looks new and very smart. We loved the maple leaf decor that's all over, even in the bathrooms. We did have to wear masks on this flight, even at our seats, which was kind of a drag. Like we said, the seat itself was very comfortable, and it lies completely flat, which came in handy on this 8-hour flight. When the seat was not reclined, there was still plenty of room to spread out and relax. You can adjust your pitch and angle with the buttons or the touchscreen that sit next to the seat. With this screen, you can also turn on the lights at your seat and adjust the brightness to create ambiance. We did really like that the back and footrest of the seat acted independently. We've had a lot of seats in the past where you can't move the backrest and footrest independently from each other. You can basically either move the seat into the lie-flat position or the sitting position, and stop anywhere in between. However, sometimes I like to put my feet up while keeping the backrest straight. On this seat, we could do that. One thing this seat did lack was storage. There was not storage behind the headrest like you might find on some other planes. There was a small storage container by the armrest, which is also where you could find the IFE remote. Speaking of in-flight entertainment, we thought that there was actually a good selection of entertainment options on the flight. All of these options were available by genre, which was awesome considering some of the flights we've been on have them in alphabetical order, which is just super annoying to sort through. There were several different movie and TV titles, as well as information on the flight, the food, and the arrival and connection information. And of course, there's also an in-flight map available. One thing we did like was that the safety demonstration while we were getting ready to take off was very Canadian, and it was quite entertaining, a lot better than some of the other ones. We also did get a small amenity kit, which included some lotions, a dental kit, and earplugs. Unfortunately, it didn't have an eye mask in there, but the cabin was kept pretty dark after dinner, so that didn't bother us too much. We did receive the menu so we could make our food selection for dinner before takeoff. We didn't get any pre-departure drinks on this flight though, which was a little upsetting considering we were sitting at the gate for quite a while. For For dinner, we decided to get the beef fillet. The starter was a salmon and shrimp dish, which honestly was good, but could have used some help in the presentation department. The main course was delicious. The beef was a bit well done, but it was smothered in a black pepper sauce that had an incredible flavor. The veggies and potatoes were also very good. We didn't have any problem clearing our plates. A light meal was also served about an hour before landing, and it was very light. It consisted of bread in a bag, which was a little bit off-putting, a selection of cold meats, and potato salad with a fruit bowl. Not the most flavorful of dishes, but the meat was good, and I really liked the potato salad. It was also nice to have fruit after having that super heavy meal for dinner. One thing we can say about this flight was that the crew was awesome. They were extremely attentive, and they gave us refills on our drinks and came around extremely often. Another thing we need to mention is the bathroom. It was kept clean throughout the flight and even had a great view. Before we knew it, we were descending into Toronto. We touched down at the Toronto Pearson International Airport about an hour late. This wasn't too big of a deal for us though, because as we said, we had a 3-hour layover to look forward to. While we weren't fans of waiting, we were fans of the fact that our business class ticket got us into the Maple Leaf Lounge, which is the premier lounge of Air Canada. Before we were able to get to the lounge though, we had to go through customs. If you are an in-transit passenger passing through Canada into the United States, you need to be aware that even if you are in transit, your bag has to go through customs. This means that you go into a little waiting area and you aren't let out until your bag goes through and is cleared. This took about 20 minutes for us. Not a huge deal, but if you have a tight connection, it's something to be aware of. Now we made our way to the Maple Leaf Lounge. The lounge here is huge. There are 2 large wings, each with several types of food and beverages that you can help yourself to. There's plenty of beers on tap, and plenty of food available. It was a good place to kill a few hours before our flight. Again though, this lounge lacks screens, so make sure you know when your flight's supposed to take off, and it's probably best to keep track of your flight status on your phone. Finally, we made it down to the gate right before boarding, and we saw our Air Canada A320. We were pretty exhausted at this point, so we were happy that we boarded on time. We got into the plane and made it to our business class seats. These business class seats are very much like any other business class that you'd find in North America. However, they did seem very tired. We aren't sure how old these seats were, but they seemed to have been here for a while. While the seats were very tired looking, they were clean, so that's something at least. Although I was a little bit worried about the broken front pocket in my seat. It looked like I'd be able to cut myself on it if I really wanted to. One good thing about these seats is that they do have in-flight entertainment. Our flight was only a little over an hour long, so we didn't really need it, but it was nice to have. However, it was very old. The touchscreen was laggy, there was no remote, and the overall presentation looked like something out of the 90s. Not only that, but if you hit a genre of movie or TV shows, it listed out every single episode in alphabetical order. Not just the show, the actual episodes. This meant that if I wanted to go through and find something that started with a W, I would have to click through so many screens to get there. Not only that, but every time a cabin announcement was made, it would show up on the screen, and then the entire IFE system would reset. Pretty frustrating if you ask us. We were served a very small meal of salmon, eggs, some crackers, and some almonds. It was a nice touch, and the presentation was good, but overall the meal was just okay. Again, this was only an hour-long flight, so it's not something we really needed. Before we knew it, we were descending into Chicago. So what did we think about the Air Canada business class experience? First, let's talk about the lounges. It is nice that there's a business class lounge available for you in Dublin, but we're not going to rate Air Canada on this contract lounge. There really aren't many lounges in Dublin at all, so there isn't much of a choice for Air Canada in which lounge they can give to their customers. We will talk about the Maple Leaf Lounge though. Let's start with the pros. There are tons of beers on tap and many other types of drinks available. There is also hot food available, which is always nice in a lounge. However, it's far from a premium lounge experience. There's nobody serving you like you might get in a British Airways lounge. You don't have any meals that you can order like you might get in a United Polaris lounge. And the entire lounge experience really isn't that different from any other type of contract lounge that you could gain access to with a priority pass. Overall, we'll rate this lounge a 3 out of 5. Now let's talk about the food. Like many other business class flights across the Atlantic, you do get 2 meals with your flight, and there's a range of meals that you can pick from. It was also nice that, unlike some of our other flights, none of these meals were out by the time they got to us, and we weren't necessarily in the front of the cabin. The food was good, my steak was a little dry, but again, the sauce made up for that. It is hard to get a steak right at 35,000 feet. The appetizer was a little uninspired, but overall the food was good. The second light meal wasn't great. The meal on our shorter flight, although it wasn't needed, it was a few crackers and some salmon. We've been served much nicer meals on much shorter flights in Europe. Overall, we would rate the food a 3 out of 5. Now let's talk about the seat. For us, this is where this product really shines. The seat is a lie-flat product, no different from its competitors, although it was very comfortable, and the layout of the seat was much nicer than some of the other flights we've been on. One of the things we really did like was that you could move the headrest from the footrest independently. The configuration of the seats was also very nice, being a 1-2-1, allowing you to sit individually or as a couple in the middle. The in-flight entertainment was great. It was easy to find shows and movies that we liked, and overall it made the experience that much better. We would give these seats a 5 out of 5. Now we want to be clear that our 5 out of 5 rating is only for the long-haul flight on the Dreamliner. If we had to rate our short-haul flight on the A320, we would probably give it a 2 out of 5. The seat, while comfortable, was very old, and in my case, broken. The seat does have IFE, which gave it an extra point, but the system was pretty much unusable. Now let's talk about the service. The service was great. The flight attendants were extremely attentive, and even though there were COVID regulations going on, they made it feel very homey and safe in the plane. Not only that, but if we had a drink in our hands, it was never empty. They kept coming around throughout the flight, and they didn't just disappear when the lights turned off like on some other flights. We will rate the service a 4 out of 5, only because there is no service available in the lounges, but the service on the plane was impeccable. Now we come to the value for money. As you know, business class flights across the Atlantic can be extremely expensive, getting up to $10,000 in some cases. This flight was a lot more reasonable. We booked this flight from Dublin to Chicago through Toronto with a return flight on United Airlines from Chicago to Dublin. The Air Canada piece of this flight came out to about $922 per person. Overall, that's not too bad, and this was a last-minute fare. Overall, we had a good experience, and we can recommend Air Canada for your next flight across the Atlantic. However, check those prices though. While we got lucky with ours, Air Canada is known for being a little bit more expensive than its competitors. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.